Daeron II was the 12th Targaryen king in Westeros history, and this is the 13th video in my Targaryen King series, in which I explore and analyze the reigns of each king in the Targaryen dynasty. Daeron sat the throne for 25 years, and is considered one of the finest rulers to ever wear the crown. This occurs from 184 to 209 AC, decades after the last dragon died, and nearly a century before dragons were hatched once more. These next few seconds of family history might spoil the end of House of the Dragon, so skip to this timestamp if you need to. From Daeron's birth in 153 until his reign began in 184, the realm saw 5 different kings in just those 30 years. Daeron was born towards the end of Aegon III's reign, and he was extremely low in the succession, descending from Aegon's brother Viserys, who was Daeron's grandpa. Weirdly, King Aegon already had a son named Daeron when his nephew Prince Aegon named his son Daeron. Well, Aegon III's sons were both idiots, and both died without children, so the throne passed to Viserys II's side of the family. Viserys himself was only king for a year, before dying suspiciously, possibly having been poisoned by his son Aegon the Unworthy. When Aegon IV became king, Daeron was already 19 years old, and already had a family of his own. When he was a young boy, during the reign of Baelor the Blessed, Daeron was betrothed to Princess Maria Martell of Dorne to secure peace, since Daeron the Young Dragon had been trying to conquer them for several years. Aegon the Unworthy hated Daeron by the end of his idiotic and gluttonous reign. Daeron was popular and diplomatic. He was basically the Prince Rhaegar to his father's Mad King Aerys, an heir to the Iron Throne, married to a Martell princess, and lords favored him instead of his father. In fact, Daeron very nearly went to war with his father twice. In 174 AC, Aegon the Unworthy tried to invade Dorne, so in order to not fight his own wife's family for no good reason, Daeron would have had to depose his father. Luckily, Aegon's invasion failed, and all his ships sunk. Later, there was an ever-increasing risk that Aegon would try to disinherit Daeron in favor of his bastard, Daemon Blackfyre. Daeron was 17 years older, but Aegon gave Daemon House Targaryen's ancestral sword of kings, and he kept spreading rumors that Daeron was a bastard. Queen Daenerys was his mother, but their brother Aemon the Dragon Knight was Daeron's father. If Aegon had made Daemon the heir, a rebellion would surely have followed. Well, actually, a rebellion did follow. It just happened years later. The first Blackfyre Rebellion occurred during Daeron's reign because right before he died, Aegon the Unworthy legitimized all his bastards, including Daemon Blackfyre. So when Daeron ascended the throne, he was 31, and his half-brother Daemon Blackfyre was just 13. He took the elaborate dragon crown of his father, Aegon the Unworthy, a heavy red gold circlet adorned with a dragon head at each point, their eyes made of gemstones. It did not fit Daeron's thoughtful and quiet personality, but it was a symbol of his legitimacy, which Aegon tried his best to ruin. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Daeron secretly wished the rumors were true, that the pious and beloved Aemon the Dragon Knight really was his father instead of the gluttonous and cruel Aegon the Unworthy. Aegon also corrupted the City Watch and appointed lickspittles to the small council, so Daeron's first moves as king were to right those wrongs. To stabilize the realm after all the great bastards were legitimized, Daeron opted for the honorable, open-handed approach. He made sure Daemon Blackfyre's marriage to Lady Rohanne of Tyrosh went through, a match Aegon the Unworthy arranged to gain an alliance with the Tyroshi fleet. Daeron let Daemon keep Blackfyre, and he even granted Daemon a plot of land near King's Landing, where he might raise a castle for the descendants of House Blackfyre to live for generations to come. Daemon was the bastard son of Aegon IV and Queen Daemna the Defiant, born at the end of Baelor the Blessed's zealous reign. Daemon was named for the rogue prince, the wonder and the terror of his age, so it was fitting that his life began ominously. Daemon's scandalous birth is why King Baelor starved himself to death. Daemon was the same age as his nephew, Baelor Breakspear, who was named for the man Daemon sort of killed just by existing. He married Rohanne of Tyrosh in 184 AC, and she had twins later that year, Aegon and Aemon Blackfyre. But there is a rumor that the true reason Daemon Blackfyre rebelled was for the girl he loved. In 188, King Daeron's little sister Daenerys, who was actually 19 years younger than him, married Meryn Martell, the Prince of Dorne. In return for his Targaryen bride, Martell bent the knee to King Daeron and pledged fealty to the Iron Throne. Afterwards, they laid a wreath at the statue of Baelor the Blessed and claimed, "Baelor, your work is done." Despite all his mistakes and zealotry, Baelor did make peace with Dorne after years of turmoil. Now, Daeron went further and brought Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms once and for all with diplomacy rather than war, a strategy that failed both his namesake, Daeron the Young Dragon, as well as Aegon the Conqueror himself. He even built a palace in the Dornish Marches called Summerhall, nestled right between the Stormlands, the Reach, and Dorne, a firm symbol of the union between Dorne and the rest of Westeros. The problem was, Daemon Blackfyre loved Princess Daenerys. He wanted to marry Daenerys, but she was married off to Dorne instead. Other rumors also claim that Daemon wanted Daenerys as his second bride, in the vein of Aegon the Conqueror and Maegor the Cruel. George Martin has confirmed that Daemon and Daenerys were in love, and her political marriage to Meryn Martell was the straw that broke the camel's back, cementing Daemon's decision to eventually rebel. But he didn't actually commit to the rebellion for another 8 years. In 196 AC, a 25-year-old Daemon Blackfyre was finally convinced to rebel against his half-brother, the king, in the 12th year of Daeron's reign. It wasn't just a war between kin. There were some, particularly lords in the Stormlands and Reach, who mistrusted the Dornish influence at court, caused by the queen herself. The evidence was plain in Daeron II's heir, Baelor Breakspear. A formidable fighter he was, but Baelor had the dark hair and eyes of a Dornishman. Daemon Blackfyre looked half a god among mortal men, with his silver hair, purple eyes, and the Conqueror's sword at his hip. When Prince Daemon had Blackfyre in his hand, there was not a man to equal him. Not Ulrich Dane with Dawn, nor even the Dragon Knight with Dark Sister. Many in Westeros wish to go back to a time when the Dornish were enemies, not friends. Although despite Daeron's own marriage to Maria Martell, he married his heir, Baelor, to Jenna Dondarrion. The Dondarrions live in the Dornish Marches, a region of the Stormlands who historically hate the Dornish. So even though the queen was a Martell, the next queen would be a Martell rival. So everyone should be happy, right? Well, thanks to the anger surrounding Dorne's influence at court, Daemon Blackfyre's own bitterness about his bastard status, and his inability to marry Daenerys, the girl he loved, this all factored into his rebellion. Daemon also had 2 fierce men at his side urging him to press his claim. Sir Quentyn Ball, known as Fireball, had been master-at-arms of the Red Keep since the reign of Aegon the Unworthy. King Aegon had promised Fireball a place in his Kingsguard once a position was open, and Fireball even sent his own wife to the Silent Sisters so he could take a Kingsguard's vows. But Aegon IV died before a position opened up, and when there was an open slot, King Daeron denied him, causing Fireball to side with Daemon Blackfyre. The second devil on Daemon's shoulder was his half-brother, Aegor Rivers, another great bastard of Aegon the Unworthy. He was called Bittersteel, for all the bitterness sown deep into his heart. He was forced to grow up at Stonehenge with the Bracken side of his family, while his half-brother Brynden was able to live in King's Landing. Bittersteel also loved their half-sister, Shiera Seastar, but she preferred Bloodraven, making Aegor all the more bitter. When it was clear that Bloodraven would support Daeron II in a civil war, Bittersteel sided with Daemon Blackfyre, and even married Daemon's eldest daughter, Calla. So as much as anything else, the inability to be with the woman they loved caused both Daemon and Aegor to rebel against the crown. When Daeron heard that Daemon planned to rebel, possibly thanks to Bloodraven's machinations, he sent the Kingsguard to arrest him, but Fireball helped Daemon escape. Some claimed that Daeron had acted simply out of baseless fear against Daemon, and others still believed the poisonous rumors about Daeron being a bastard, spread by his own father whilst he lived. None of the great houses declared for the Black Dragon, though many smaller lords in the Stormlands and Reach, who had hated Dorne for centuries, joined the Blackfyre cause. We aren't given a detailed account of all the battles fought in this war, just that they occurred in the Vale, Westerlands, Riverlands, and elsewhere. We also know that Fireball went kind of nutty, defeating a Westerlands army at Lannisport, killing Lord Lefford, and sending Lord Daemon Lannister into retreat. He also defeated House Penrose at the crossing of the Mander, but Lord Leo Tyrell supported King Daeron and took several victories against the Blackfyres in the Reach. The Blackfyre Rebellion culminated at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, an unconfirmed location somewhere near King's Landing. The night before the battle, Fireball was shot with an arrow by some unknown archer while he was getting a drink of water. Bloodraven was a skilled archer and a practitioner of various forms of magic, so it's possible he was responsible for Fireball's death. Although, I like the idea of some random archer killing one of the strongest knights in the realm. During the battle, Daemon Blackfyre smashed the Aeron vanguard and dueled Sir Gawain Corbray of the Kingsguard for nearly an hour. It was Valyrian steel versus Valyrian steel, Blackfyre versus Lady Forlorn. You could hear the sound for a league around. It was half a song and half a scream. When Daemon defeated Gawain, he tried to help him to safety so the maesters could tend his wounds. But Bloodraven and his personal guard of Raven's Teeth caught him, and rained down weirwood arrows driven by sorcery and black spells, killing Daemon Blackfyre and his two sons, Aegon and Aemon. Bittersteel took up Blackfyre and led another charge, entering a 1v1 with his arch-nemesis, Bloodraven. Again, it was a clash of Valyrian steel, Blackfyre versus Dark Sister, and Bittersteel was able to slash out Bloodraven's left eye before having to evacuate. Because now the Sons of the Dragon had entered the field. Prince Baelor Breakspear and Prince Mycor, the Hammer and the Anvil. Mycor put up a shield wall with what remained of the vanguard, while Baelor's host of Dornishmen and Stormlanders routed the remaining Blackfyre army. As Eustace Osgrey puts it in the Dunk and Egg stories, the Hammer and the Anvil are praised as the heroes of this battle, but had it not been for Bloodraven's arrows, Daemon Blackfyre would likely have won at the Redgrass Field, and gone forth to King's Landing to take the Iron Throne. Bittersteel took Daemon Blackfyre's remaining sons, and the sword, across the narrow sea to Tyrosh, and founded the Golden Company. 4 more Blackfyre rebellions would follow in the generations to come, but the rest of Daeron's reign was free of them. Daeron II was always a kind and lenient king, but he was stern in his punishment of rebellious lords. He stripped their lands and titles, and took hostages to ensure their loyalty. House Peake lost 2 of their 3 castles, and Eustace Osgrey had most of his land given to House Weber. But years later, Osgrey was still loyal to Daemon Blackfyre, the king who bore the sword. He thinks that all the Black Dragon supporters melted away like dew in fear of Bloodraven, but they cannot all be dead. This next section will spoil Season 1 of The Hedge Knight, an HBO adaptation of the Dunk and Egg novellas coming in early 2025, so skip to this timestamp if you haven't read those. The heir to the Iron Throne and Prince of Dragonstone, Baelor Breakspear, earned his nickname in the tourney for Daemon Blackfyre's wedding to Rohan of Tyrosh. It was a sick twist of irony that Baelor eventually died at a tourney in 209 AC, 13 years after the Redgrass Field. For this later portion of his father's reign, Baelor helped him rule as the Hand of the King, a responsibility that helped shape him into the heart of chivalry and the soul of wisdom. It turns out that giving your heir some experience in ruling can help make them much more capable rulers. Who would have thunk? A lowly hedge knight called Sir Duncan the Tall attacked Prince Aegon Targaryen in defense of a puppeteer named Tanzel, whose puppet show offended the cruel and insecure prince. Aegon demanded a trial of 7, and because Baelor Breakspear believed Dunk was in the right, he joined his side. They won the trial, but Baelor took a nasty blow to the back of his head, delivered by his own brother, Mycor Targaryen, fighting in defense of his son, Aegon. Baelor wasn't expecting to participate in the tourney at Ashford, so he didn't bring his own armor. During the trial of 7, Baelor was wearing his son Valar's armor. It goes hard as fuck, but Valar was both shorter and slimmer than his father. Baelor was wearing armor that was much too small for him, so I wonder if Valar's tight helm wasn't able to absorb enough impact from Mycor's mace, and if Baelor had been wearing a larger helm, he might have lived. Afterwards, Sir Dunk thought, the world made no sense when a great prince died so a hedge knight might live. But that's just the kind of man Baelor was, a defender of the innocent. Had he ascended the throne, Baelor might have become the finest king in Targaryen history. The year was 209 AC, and things only got worse after Baelor Breakspear's death. The realm had lost its kind and capable heir, the Hand of the King. And then the Great Spring Sickness arrived, a nasty plague that swept the 7 kingdoms, save the Vale and Dorne. where they closed off the roads, the ports, and the mountain passes to keep the sickly away. Baelor's eldest son, Valar, became Daeron II's heir after the brain smushing incident, and his little brother Materys became the Spare. Unfortunately, both of Baelor's sons died from this plague. And then King Daeron himself succumbed, along with 4 out of every 10 infected citizens of King's Landing, the city in which the plague hit the hardest. Bloodraven ordered all the corpses to be brought into the dragon pit, where they were piled up 10 feet high and burned by the pyromancers with wildfire. The book says a quarter of the city burned with them, which is kind of crazy how little this is talked about. Wildfire is essentially alchemy, and it's extremely hard to control. Twice, wildfire is called treacherous stuff, and it cannot be stopped with water. In fact, wildfire burns on water, and if it gets out of control, it won't stop burning until it consumes everything it touches. In 210 AC, this meant that a quarter of King's Landing, the second largest city by area in Westeros, was burned down. Daeron II ruled for 25 years, all of which were peaceful except 1 year, 196 AC, for the Blackfyre Rebellion. He brought peace and plenty to the realm, and is remembered through history as Daeron the Good. He brought Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms through marriage rather than war, and he did his best with the terrible situation Aegon the Unworthy left behind, legitimized pretenders to the throne, and no dragons to easily stop them. He earns his spot in the upper echelon of Targaryen kings, outranked in terms of peaceful years by only Viserys I, Aegon III and V, and of course, Jaehaerys the Conciliator. So after King Daeron's death, the throne passed to his second son, Aerys I, a physically feeble, prophecy-minded, and ultimately decent man, though he left most of the ruling to his uncle Bloodraven. His life is full of question marks, and I've got some theories, but Aerys' reign will be the focus of the next video in this series. Let me know in the comments where you'd rank Daeron II among Targaryen kings, and whether you'd fight for the red dragon or the black. Thanks for watching and subscribing.